Well, welcome everyone. It's great to have you join us tonight on our YouTube channel. We're so excited that you decided to join us this evening. It's really great to have everyone here.
It is. It's great for us to be here with you. It is Marriage Monday. That means it's Monday night. And hey, everybody, we just want to start hearing from you right away. So do this. Do us a favor. Go ahead and let us know who's here. Put in the chat, the live chat thing there. Go ahead and put your name in. And maybe even where you're from. A lot of our friends who come on this are from the GTA, the Greater Toronto area. So don't put like what apartment number, what your buzz code is, nothing like that. But just if you're from some part of Toronto, drop that in as well. Or if you're from another city entirely, another part of the world, sometimes we get people from all over the world. So if you're with us live, tell us you're here. We're just going to kind of take a look, and we see we've got everybody here. Also, we'd love to hear from people who don't usually say anything on this chat. Usually on Monday nights, we get about, I don't know, a couple hundred of our friends, and not a couple hundred of our friends sort of say hi or anything. So go ahead and say hi.
Don't be shy.
Maybe you're a couple. Maybe you're a couple. Go ahead and say hi there. Maybe you're just sitting by yourself. Your spouse can't be with you tonight. Go ahead and say hi as well. That's okay. And maybe your spouse doesn't want to be with you tonight watching this. That's okay. Say hi to us there as well. Maybe you're a single watching this. Go ahead and say hi to us. Maybe you're a campus or a college and university student watching this, or a teenager watching this. Go ahead and say hi to us. We're lonely. We want some friends.
And also, before we get started, if you're enjoying Marriage Mondays and you're finding that it's helping your marriage, and you can think of anyone else that you know it would help, on your device, there is, right beside all the buttons like and those things, there's a share button. And if you click on that right now, you can send this link, text it to someone, email them, Facebook Messenger, and they can even watch it later, but they'll have the link to see this and hopefully get some help for their marriages too.
That's great. So everybody's saying hi. So cool that you're doing this. So great to have you with us. People, oh my goodness, they're from all over the place. Places, obscure, remote places like Ajax, Ontario, Orillia, Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, California.
You're not saying anybody's names.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's so many. You can see here as well there. So listen, we just want to tell you, everybody, before we get started, and we will get started in just a second, but we're in a new place. We're in a new studio. This is our new home. We got kicked out of our other studio, so to speak. Why was that? Did you do something wrong? Did you make somebody angry? Is that why we got kicked out?
No, I think it's because Chris likes us.
Did I
think that's
do
why
something
we're here.
wrong? You mentioned Chris, but nobody knows who this magical Chris is. This is our friend
He
Chris.
makes it happen.
Chris Ramos,
Yes.
and he's our technical guru, our genius.
Amazing.
He does
Yeah,
everything for us, and he set up our new home here. It looks like our living room, but you know it's not our living room, and I'll tell you why. The couch is facing away from the TV. Nobody has a living room like that. So this is our special Marriage Monday living room, and we are ready to get started. So
okay, you didn't want to say hi to anybody else?
well, yeah, I mean, look at how many people here. You guys.
Aw.
It's amazing. Even the Williams. We know the Williams. They're from Mississauga. Isn't that something? How can I start?
Michael and Tori.
How can we start saying people's names?
Hello.
The Cruises.
We've seen you before.
Just great. Thank you all for being
Okay, well, we'll
here.
get started then, I
So,
guess.
Marriage Monday, here's what we do. We always talk about marriages. We talk about our marriage a little bit. We're going to talk about your marriage, and we want to definitely help. Now, a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about, you may think, well, does this apply to me? Does it not apply to me? But we want to make sure that we embed in everything. There's going to be something for
Everyone,
here.
absolutely. Yep. And this is 5 phases called Oh Wow. We want you all to have a wow kind of marriage. But we know that marriages don't stay still. They're not static. They move around from different places depending on the season of life you're in, and also how long you've been married, as we've discovered. And so we're talking about the 5 phases, and hopefully there'll be something that we can learn from each phase and carry it on into the next phase and have great marriages. At the end of our day, we can say, wow, it was great to be married.
At the end of our life, we can say, wow. That's ultimately the goal in every marriage that we have. And so if you can see the screen behind us, that is just a synopsis, a summary again of all the 5 phases that we're going to be talking about. We talked last week. The first phase was, oh, yes. That's that
that was a
honeymoon
good
phase.
one.
We'll come back to that in just a second. Tonight, number 2, phase number 2 is uh-oh. There's a number of ways that you can say that, right? But that's phase number 2. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to hit the uh-oh stage because everybody has to go through that in one way, shape, or form. And some of you might be in the uh-oh stage right now. Phase number 3 that we will talk about is the oh dear phase. There's some ways we'll talk about that in the next session that we're together. Then there's the oh boy stage. And the final stage before everything is all over, and the goal of everyone here is to get to that final stage,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
happy
day.
So those are our 5 stages. We're going to go through those together. But tonight is uh-oh. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we were going to review phase 1
Oh,
last
you're right,
week
you're right.
because we want to keep sort of carrying over from each phase and
Please tell us about phase 1.
crystallizing the good stuff. So phase 1 was the exciting phase of the chemicals and all the hormones that are just raging and creating this, passionate connection and obsession and, just the exciting.
How long generally are you married in phase 1?
Or just infatuation stage. It's they say that it lasts anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Though some people have a very tough, right out of the gate. It doesn't necessarily last. It depends on maybe how long you've been dating beforehand. But it's a very exciting stage of the relationship.
So typically this stage is in what point of marriage?
1 to 2 years of marriage. And so
early in the marriage? Does this come any 2 years in the marriage?
In 0 to 2 years.
There you go. The honeymoon stage is what we were going for.
You're throwing me off, honey.
Yeah,
okay, so anyway,
so
okay,
it's
just
early in the
before
marriage,
we move on, we just want to say in this time we wanted to kind of really, if you can, put any of it in a bottle and keep it and just remember it and stay in that phase. We talked about that Old Testament scripture that encouraged the young couples to spend a whole year bringing happiness to their spouses, which is amazing, and I think we should bring that back. Although someone I put in the chat that we're in it right now because of the pandemic, so that's all good. Really enjoy that oneness, that bond, solidify it. It's the foundation for the rest of your life.
Really good, and that was our last session. This session is phase number 2, which is defined, or we've given it the name uh-oh, or how do you ever want to say that?
What have we done?
Yeah.
What's happening?
You can put your own intonation on it, but we're going to go ahead and define what this stage is. And to a lot of the marriages that are watching and that are represented here in this amazing chat that we've already got going, we are probably quite familiar with this stage. Not everybody is in this stage, but we're quite familiar with this stage. And by the way, since the chat is working so actively right now, throw in there what phase you think you are in your marriage. If you are cared to be that vulnerable.
Can you move back and forth? Can you go back into phases, do you think?
Well, that's a really good question. I am actually not sure about that. I feel like sometimes we do.
Yes.
But I think we're not supposed to.
Oh, okay.
There's supposed to be a maturity that goes with you.
A progression.
Okay. But, I think I'm guilty of falling back down the ladder. So throw in there what phase you think you might be in. Take a wild guess. You might be wrong. Who knows? But let's talk about phase 2 now. So we want to define what phase 2 is. You want to tell us a little bit about the overall feeling at this next stage in your marriage?
The chemicals wear off. They can't last. And so there is just a natural coming down off a high, really. And that's why we talked about last week how some people actually jump in and out of relationships to keep that chemical cocktail going. And that doesn't help, really, because as you said, we need to mature and progress in our relationships. So
can I just stop for a second? Yeah. Isn't that bizarre? I think all of us know that to be true, but isn't it really weird that basically these people, and sometimes we can be guilty of it, we become so concerned about what other people think of us, and a lot of times it has to do with brain chemistry. Does anybody love me? That even I'm searching now for love outside of my emotional relationship. It's amazing, yet we all know it to be true, and sometimes we just think, oh, that person has this problem, but a lot of times behind the scenes it might just be you're addicted to what your body produces, and so you keep chasing this emptiness anyways.
Well, it is really true, and it's helpful to know that this is a biological phenomenon and it's not supposed to last forever, or
Yep.
you wouldn't really get things done in your life if you were always obsessed with each other.
But it's a real
So-
warning to anybody who's married. You know, you got to stay away from trying to get that attention
Yes.
from somebody else outside of your marriage, even though,
Yeah.
because your brain will fool you and say, oh, well, this person understands me. Oh, this is my soulmate. And these are all huge lies that
Oh,
are
it's
just
true.
being produced
It's true.
by
We're
the
going into
amygdala
this. We're
or
going into
something
the
like that.
session. You're making me want to jump back to the last session and talk about how you got to watch for those butterfly feelings. You can get them with someone outside of your marriage,
Yeah.
just from spending too much time, and
Yeah.
it's just biology.
So all of that comes to an
yeah,
end, and we get in
but
phase
then,
2.
Then in phase 2,
It's not fun anymore.
so because of all the good feelings, the serotonin, the all those hormones we talked about last week, they kind of mask everything, so you don't really see problems. There's no problems, and
Why
you
would
don't.
there be?
You're just so happy to be together.
Yeah.
So when that's gone, all of a sudden the cracks
Just
start to
move
be
in
revealed,
together,
and
hanging
you-
out together,
Yeah.
having sex. What in the world could be a
What could be
problem
wrong with
there?
that?
No problems at all. And then all of this starts happening, right? There you
Yeah.
start to see flaws in the other person.
Yeah, and it's
Imagine
sad
that.
too. It feels kind of like, oh, what happened to the romance and all of that. You're not
Yeah.
as
I wonder, did I ever, did I ever lose my shine? Did you ever wake up and look at me and go, did I?
You don't want me to answer that
Yes,
question.
no, tell the people. Phase 2.
I
It
do
happens
remember
to everybody.
year three, which we're going to get to.
Mhm.
But yes, definitely year 3. I just felt like we sounded like an old married couple, and I didn't like the way we were talking to each other. And yeah, there's just everything. It was just so easy to criticize everything.
Imagine that. Everybody goes through this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So this is where disappointments come in. This is where, we already just talked about this, but where fantasy becomes more interesting than reality, because reality isn't as, flower petals and unicorns and doves and things like that. So we sort of struggle through stuff like that. Unmet expectations.
Yeah, that's a big one we're going to get to. The expectations all start to come out now. We want our spouse to be a mind reader and to know, anticipate what we need and what we want, and yeah, everything's just sort of a little bit disappointing
Yep.
at this. Can be disappointing at this.
We never know when it starts, if it's 2.5 years, 3 years, sometime in and around there, all of a sudden there'll be small...
sooner.
Or sooner,
Yep.
or later, who knows, but there'll be little small problems, and there'll be big problems. But what you'll find in life is that you're starting to notice problems, and when you start to notice problems all the time, very few of them are small. A lot of them will be small.
That's true.
We were always amazed at how small and stupid and
What could-
unimportant
yeah.
we would just
Yeah.
be so upset about.
Our big fight about a spider. That was our first. You really let me down that
was a
night.
huge
We've
fight.
talked
It
about
goes
that
on
before.
to this day. This
Oh
argument,
well.
this great
Yeah,
moment.
you can laugh about those fights later, but at the time, it feels monumental.
That's right. So what we want to do, we've tried to do something. We think that certainly we admit, as you guys do as well, that we get boring from time to time. So we want to bring in some people. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're gonna share a video, an exciting video, hopefully exciting to you to watch. Some wonderful couples that we were privileged to interview, and you'll see them in a few moments. And I think you wanted to explain what we want everyone to do.
So here's what we're going to do. We found some people that we believe are in phase 2, and we want you to watch. They were kind enough to put themselves out there, to be
Yes.
vulnerable. And of course, this is them being vulnerable and putting their best video foot forward as well. Don't forget that. But here's what I want you to do. Take a close look while you're watching this. I mean, enjoy the video itself, but think to yourself and even put in the chat where you see phase 2 showing its head. Just put some comments in like, I see this. Oh, that's probably, a phase 2 thing. That sounds different than phase 1. Any kind of specifics that you
and
can
if
put
you
in
saw
there.
our last session, you'll maybe recall those interviews and how different that interview session is with this interview session.
So look for the differences between phase 1 and phase 2. Drop it in the chat so we don't spend an extra 10 minutes waiting for the chat to catch up there. Just even as it goes, type some things in and go ahead and watch our good friends in phase 2. So grateful to be together with all of you here this evening. Thank you so much for spending some time with us as we talk about the different phases of marriage. And we want to give you a chance just to introduce yourselves.
I'm Chris,
And I'm Kat.
and we've been married for 2.5 years. I'm Eden,
And I'm Lisa.
and we've been married for 2.5 years.
I'm Jeremy,
I'm Melissa.
and we've been married for 2.5 years.
So we're talking about this next phase of marriage, and we've been calling this phase the uh-oh phase. This is very different than the first phase we talked about, which of course was the oh yes phase, and that was more like
That's
the
an
honeymoon.
exciting phase.
And in this phase, you move into a new time where you leave that honeymoon and that oh yes feeling, and you start to discover more about yourself. So we want to ask you some questions just about that.
Do you think you have any idea when the honeymoon phase kind of ended, where you just felt like reality set in?
The second year, I noticed a big shift in terms of, okay, we've done this before, and we chose to do this way. It didn't work out so well. Let's do it a little bit different. So maybe it was a year after a year things changed, but it wasn't all rosy. It was a bit of both. Yeah.
It wasn't like it changed overnight. I think it was gradually. I sensed that we just got into a norm where we started to realize, oh, okay, this is who she is, and this is who I am, and we're fine with that.
I think there is some small things and big things, but an easy thing that we had to overcome was just how we cook in the kitchen, or how we dispose of food, or how much of the food we dispose or not dispose of. And I think those are just cultural things that we were brought up with.
It's like not like a fairy tale story that when you go to a married, there's like a nice place, and there's a lot of excitement. But when you go to like a fairy tale, the place is empty. You're gonna put patience, love, understanding, and humility. So that makes the marriage grow.
Are there any ways that you guys saw life differently that sort of revealed themselves?
Early disagreements that you had to work through.
And what were they like?
I think the first thing that was kind of an issue was the time that I spent on my phone or watching television, giving so much attention, to the phone and to the TV, and not enough to my wife. And Lisa is all about, spending time together. It was such a struggle for me in the beginning because that was a habit that I developed. But for her, it wasn't like that, and we had quite, well, I wouldn't call it kind of an argument, kind of a fight, but we had quite a lot of discussion about that.
How we saw our careers. I've grown up in an environment where mom and dad are career people. They when I was born, my mom didn't have a lot of time with me, and then both parents were always out at work, and I was ingrained in that culture where I saw that as the standard of what my family life would be, or my work life would be like. Having been planning for a family for about a year now, and we're about to have our first child. I think there's been a lot of conversation around, hey, what will Kat be doing post delivery, and when she's done with her maternity leave. There were periods where I struggled with the idea that, oh, okay, she's not going to be going back to work, so I felt like, wow, there's a lot on my shoulders to make sure that, got to bring home the bacon and make sure that everyone's well fed, and so that felt like a lot of pressure on me.
Do you want to talk about the strawberry?
Sure.
Do you want to say it, or do you?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, you go.
All right. I think when it came to certain fruits or certain vegetables, let's say like the strawberry, I think I throw out less of it. I just take the leaves off and then just the little stem, and I think we just cut it differently. She disposes maybe a little bit more of the strawberry than I do, but I just want to make the strawberry stretch. So we would just have to overcome those kind of things.
Yeah, and it's more about, like, for him, it's important because of the weight. Like, he doesn't want to waste, right? So as little he can waste, then he's not going to, right?
certain things, like if something drops on the floor, I would naturally just go put it in the garbage, but for him, he rinses it off and throws it in the pot, and make it. And really, there's nothing wrong with it. It just different habits that we've built over time. So yeah, so there's a few of those instances where just learning about each other and learning about those small things that make each other uncomfortable, or yeah.
Can't you see my need without me telling you, right? It was, you're living with your family, and they raise you, so obviously they know you very, very well and can anticipate some of these needs. But now you're bringing in this complete new person into your life who you do know well, but not 30 years worth of experiences. So I placed a lot of that on Chris, right? Like, why can't you serve me or meet my needs in the way that I need them to be met? What?
Reading her mind.
Yeah, reading my mind without me telling you, right?
How do you keep your friendship with each other fresh when you're going through challenges like this?
I think for us, in any relationship, there has to be an understanding, and that can only come about if you know how the other person is feeling. Whenever we have an issue, and this is something I love about my wife, even if she's mad for like a day, that she wouldn't talk to me, eventually she will come and I will hear these 3 words: can we talk? She always says, can we talk?
For us, something that helps us to keep our friendship is just saying something that Melissa thought of before. And it was always same team. It's always making sure that we're on the same team. And I think that's something that we've learned to say after a conflict is resolved, or when we're just feeling insecure, or when we just need to feel the support of each other. We say, we're on the same team. And I think that really helps us to consolidate, what our goals are, what our feelings for each other are, and what the ideas we have for the future will be. And I think it's just a good reminder for us on a daily basis to just say, like, we're on the same team, we're doing this together, let's just keep going.
Or what would you advise people for, keeping the friendship alive?
Like being open to each other. Yeah, that's one thing that I like to eat in. And like there's the communication. It's number 1.
Humility too is one of those things that really keep friendships going, because if you're not humble, everything that she's talking about is just gonna go right over your head. But listening to her and thinking about what she's saying, and oftentimes kind of having the conviction, it's like, why did I do what I did? And so communication to me is what keeps the friendship going.
Wow, yours is profound. I was just gonna say buy a dishwasher, but
that's true. That did save our marriage.
That did save our marriage. So no, I was gonna share. Lately, I think it's been very encouraging for Kat and I when we go grocery shopping together. It sounds like a very mundane, very nothing to be excited about kind of activity. But the backstory to all this is that since the pandemic started, I've really been the only one doing all the grocery runs, just because Kat's pregnant. I would prefer her to be home, but I realized that there was a missing element in that trip, that grocery run, where we've had some really nice conversations about just life in general. As much as it may seem like, oh, it's just a grocery run, that meant a lot to me in terms of our friendship and how we were doing things together, and enjoying our time together.
For us, one of the things we really enjoy doing is just reorganizing the house, and we'll change it, we'll move the couch, we'll move like books around, and sometimes people come over and they're like, oh, it looks different. And it's usually because it is different. And so I think even just that and just our teamwork in those moments, we really enjoy having those moments together. So I would advise people to find those little things that you guys enjoy doing together, something that's different, something that's unique to your relationship.
We wish you all the best in this new phase that you'll be going through, where you've realized that each other is a real person and not a fantasy person. But also, we really wish you well in your lives together, and especially, if we could say, to Chris and Kat, we wish the new person who will be joining us this summer well as well. So that's really wonderful. Thank you all. All right, 1, 2, 3, and so how about that? How about those good phase 2 marriager people? We're so grateful for them, and if they listen, appreciate them, because they came and bared their souls in front of all of you high-powered married people who have no problems in their marriages. But if you really appreciate those guys, why don't you give them some applause? Actually, they're not going to. Tell you what, if you really appreciate what they've done, why don't you go ahead and like our little, our little thumbs up on our YouTube channel, and that way our couples will know that you guys really did appreciate them. But now let's talk about observations. We saw some of you guys making some great comments in here, not the least of which buying a dishwasher, which is probably may save your marriage, but that's an expensive thing to do tonight. But just this idea that we need to, or rather that you guys were observing, that there's differences that start to really come out, of course, in this phase. We talked about that beforehand, but that's something, something that we noticed, and we don't mean this as a bad criticism of our good friends who just came on and shared their life.
No, they were awesome.
But we noticed there was a little bit of a different energy from last session to this session. And do you remember, like, our phase 1ers, those honeymooners, those people who are going on?
They were all giggles.
Yeah, and they talked a lot.
Giggles and cuddles.
Didn't they? They talked a lot about, I just want to be with her.
Yeah,
I
can't wait to come home to him.
Just cuddle. And they're saying, that's my true love to you. But you know what we're all knowing inside? That's oxytocin. That's the cuddle hormone, right? So you get to this stage, there's a lot less talk about cuddling, isn't there? There's a lot more talk about, why don't you read my mind? Things like that.
It's true. There's differences even culturally. You bring into the marriage different ways of cooking food and cutting up a strawberry. That was awesome. I'll never forget that.
You remember we talked about sometimes there's big problems like dishwashers, and sometimes we get into arguments about
little problems.
Strawberries.
Yeah. And big problems like how many kids to have, or whether you're going to work after you have your children. These are big issues that have to be discussed, and it can be stressful.
Yep. And so phase 2 is defined, is certainly what? Is it a safe time?
Well, apparently it is the time when the most divorces happen. So statistically, you got to watch out. And even the couples that we interviewed, they need to understand that they're just going into this phase. And it's a phase that can be very vulnerable for people. You can want to run away and just, give up on the problems and not go to some vulnerable places, learn how to have difficult conversations about things and issues. And it can just be hard, but you have to stay with it and not lose the connection. It's kind of a crossroads. You can go in one direction or the other. So very, very important how you handle this phase.
It's such a very good point. So if you've not listened to anything we've said so far, and even if you're not in phase 2, do listen to this, because you're either going to get into phase 2 or you've already been in phase 2. But sometimes some of phase 2 sort of splashes out and it lands on us in the other phases. But what Lisa's saying here is so very, very powerful. This is a very vulnerable time. It's a very possibly, if you don't handle it well, it's a destructive time. And what I really wanted just to say here is, think back to phase 1, that honeymoon. We were just in our first year of marriage. What is driving that phase is the good feelings. What's driving that phase is, we've talked so much now about chemicals. If it seems to be true. We're not saying that you don't love each other. Of course you love each other, but you're being driven by those things. When you start moving into the next phase, those chemicals and those emotions and that infatuation is no longer driving. So what that means is, in phase 2, you need to get in the driver's seat.
Yes.
You need to take control, because there is nothing more terrifying in our world than something that is an automotive thing. For example, there's nothing more terrifying than an automobile going down the freeway, whether it's the 401 just out here, there's a Toronto reference for you, or if it's a super highway somewhere, and the person's going, the speed limit in an automobile, and they relinquish control. They're no longer in the driver's seat. Or if there's a train and there's someone who's relinquished control, that's a terrifying idea.
No.
Don't let your marriage be rolling ahead, and you're going through all this time where
it's really true.
She is no longer this perfect person. I'm frustrated with him, and now you both relinquish the driving. Now's the time, since the hormones aren't driving you. You got to get in the driver's seat.
You can't let your feelings rule in that situation. It's very true. So let's talk about all the things that actually do need to be talked about in this stage.
So in phase 2, there are problems that come up behind us on the big screen of pain.
Suddenly you see all these issues
and these are just
not masked by the feel-good hormones.
Every problem in the history of marriage
We've listed
is behind
them
us?
all. No.
Not even close. This is just a skim. This is just
tip of the
what
iceberg.
happens. And if
You're welcome.
Look at some of these. This is just the depressing picture of what starts to happen.
And they're not depressing in and of themselves, but they're just tricky, right?
Yeah, you got to figure these things out. When you're in love in that first stage, we don't have to talk about chores. I'm happy to do the dishes, babe, all the time.
I'll pick up your socks. You don't need to put them in the laundry basket.
Dirty underwear, my pleasure. My pleasure. Not so much in phase 2, right? You all of a sudden wake up, and this is like he's a man in the bed beside you, but he's part pig. He doesn't pick up his clothes. Or
there's
here's
messy
the big
women.
shocker.
There's messy women
she
out there.
She doesn't pick up her clothes.
Yes.
Whoever saw that coming, right? And now we're so we put the list, right?
Just shocking.
Chores.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. Now this was a big shock for me, actually, that you have to actually talk about sex, that you actually have to have a conversation about it. That there can be. Like, I just sort of pictured when we got into marriage, like, I was always just going to give off this pheromone. You were always just going to be drawn to me.
Yeah.
And we were never really having
always
problems.
Always ready for you.
Right. Whatever happened to that, lady?
Well, we've heard that a tricky thing can be that in the phase 1 stage, the person with the higher libido, that the other spouse will kind of rise to match that
Can I
libido.
make sure they know what you're saying? In phase 1.
Yeah, in phase 1.
honeymoon stage, when one person has a higher sex drive than the other, because chemicals are firing.
Yeah, the other one just is ready
the other comes and meets it.
Yeah. So, but then in phase 2, that person who has the lower sex drive, no, they're not doing that. And so for this person, it can be very shocking.
Hey, what happened?
I thought that we were,
we were all this.
Yeah, this was our frequency,
but now
and we're this frequency.
And this person says,
very much on different frequencies.
Exactly right.
So that has to be talked about and negotiated.
And you have to get in the driver's seat. You have to take responsibility, because usually when this happens and you don't talk about it, what else happens? Bad attitude, resentment.
But that's profound.
Frustration.
It's profound to know that one person feels fooled almost, because they thought this was the way it was going to be, but anyway.
There you go.
That's really, we're not going to go through everything on that list,
but
okay?
there's so many up here, isn't there? And there's so many more. And these are the things that ultimately take us out, that we start fighting with, or we get bitter about, we get resentment.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned in the chat, expectations. You can see on the big screen of woe that we put expectations. So much. You want to just talk about that really quick? Expectations.
Well, sure, expectations are just the way you feel that things should be. We come into the marriage, we have opinions, we have convictions, and we think this is the way it should be.
Oh, it's always scary when somebody drops the convictions, right? I have a conviction.
Even one of our couples that we interviewed talked about the phone. And that's a big one today for couples. That how much we're going to look at the phone while we're eating dinner or trying to have some, connecting time.
We're talking about expectations, and you're looking at the phone.
Yeah. So it's a big deal, and everyone doesn't see eye to eye on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. There's so many things on this list. I think money, obviously, we go in thinking, we'll have no problem. Even in some premarital counseling, we ask the question: how much money can your spouse spend without consulting you. And some couples will be like, oh, $500, they can, I've heard that. And I was
Without
like,
consulting?
wow,
Yeah.
But then when they get married,
There's people who
suddenly,
make a lot more money than we
it's
do.
true. But
That's what
suddenly
it
when they
is.
get married, they're upset that that same person is upset they're supposed to have spent $25 because of what they spent it on, right? So you can spend $500 if I agree on what you're spending it on, but if I disagree, so it's really tricky, and you think that you know each other, and you really don't when all these issues come up. So it's.
Hey, take a look at the chat. There's some good advice being
good.
dropped
Good,
in
good.
there. Some people, my friend Tabinder just said, when you get into this stage, it's really important to look at the good in the other person, the reason you married them. That's some good, wise, sage advice right there, and you got to hold to it. So here's our advice getting through phase 2. There's really 2 important things, and this, by the way, is not just good advice coming from churchy people like us, but it's also some good research stuff.
Are you going to get to our so what's for tonight? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just wanted to share, we really are just breezing over this. This is a phase of getting to know each other. Like, you really have to talk. And we're not going to tonight talk about communication skills or conflict resolution skills, but you do need to get those if you don't have them. And we've talked about, you can't be tackling these problems, tackle the problems, but don't attack the person, right? Not you're always, and change the you to I. You have to try and figure out what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and express that, but don't attack your spouse.
This is a really good point that you're making, and frankly the others are making even in the chat. So if phase 1 of your marriage is that really just all the right feelings, and phase 2 is reality hits, and you've never gone through this before, you've got to learn how to apply. Now there's some, and since it's a live stream, there's some old marrieds that are watching. But even some of us who are old marrieds, we got to work on this kind of communication. Even though we're supposed to be pros at it by now, how many of us fall into the you when we're trying to have these kind of conversations about expectations? But we have to go back a few sessions and remember you change the you to I. So it's no, I feel this way.
It's just a really easy phase to criticize each other. Just really, get too much into the heavy criticizing.
Yep.
Criticize the problem, but not the person.
Yeah.
Like we've said before, that's so
advice.
important. So I'm excited though about what we're going to share. So
no matter what phase
I
you're
stopped
in,
you.
that's good
Go
advice.
ahead.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
So these 2 things that we're just going to suggest are not just good advice coming from Kevin and Lisa, although it is. It's not just even more high thinking, high moral, high spiritual advice, although it is. But this is stuff that's actually been researched, and these are the 2 that we would suggest. The first one is this: when you enter or when you're in the uh-oh stage, it is very important for you to have spirituality. Now, we're going to say this. I'm a minister, right? Minister's wife.
Yep.
I'm an elder, elder's wife. Yep. But this is actually documented science. Those who choose to go through their marriage and through their life and choose to be spiritual, choose to have faith, have a greater impact of a more successful marriage, and ultimately an oh wow life, an oh wow marriage. So don't dismiss this, don't click off. Let's not see the numbers go down because we just churched you out right now. This is science, okay? So, now we thought about a scripture to share with you from the Bible, and this is from Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. You want to read it for us?
Yeah. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see.
So we just thought, if you're in phase 2 or 3, 4, and 5, and you are going through some of this junky stuff, just be reminded you've got to get your moorings. You've got to find your place that you're holding on to in faith. Your spirituality, your faith is so very, very important. So we put the word faith up there in big letters, but also confidence.
I love that.
To get through this, you need confidence. You need hope. You need that assurance. And we don't want to sort of draw this out too long, but this is just really, really important. I can't tell you how many, or we can't tell you how many couples that we've counseled in their marriages, and they just don't want to make this
Yeah.
an important issue. But what they want is give me the answers. Let's go around spirituality. Let's go around
Yeah.
faith, and let's fix our problem. And maybe someday we'll come back to faith.
We really believe that we really believe everyone has a soul and has, just a space that needs to be filled by God and their faith. And when your tank is empty, your spiritual life is empty, it's amazing what bad behavior you
Yeah.
can fall into. And I think that's why in this phase, people are tempted with affairs or tempted to just escape into some, fantasy world.
Boy, talk about escapism. If you don't have any moorings, right? Talk about escapism in a
Yeah.
marriage. You got these two people that are together years and
Yeah.
years and years, but they're not married anymore, right? This
Yeah,
kind of
a
stuff.
lot of problems.
Yeah.
A lot of problems can come into a marriage when, one or both spouses are not really finding their center, in God. So, we really think that when you're married, it does expose kind of the side of you that's not so flattering sometimes. It's hard being married. You're a flawed individual,
Yeah,
and you're
you
married
said
to a
this-
flawed
You said this to me
individual.
yesterday. Marriage, what was the phrase? It was a great phrase. Marriage,
did.
something.
It just
Marriage
reveals-
exposes not your best self.
Yeah, it does. And it's a great opportunity to grow and to change the things that are not so attractive inside of yourself. And you see that in each other, and you have to work on that together. And with spirituality, with faith, that's where you can really get the power to do that, right?
Yeah.
So otherwise, I think these problems become kind of like a competition. Who's right? Who's wrong? And it's about winning, and it's just really hard to be humble.
Power,
and
right?
yeah, power struggles. And so with your faith intact, you're a much better place to, get over those obstacles.
That's a good point. I was just thinking while you were saying that, and we love our volunteers who came on and shared from their life. And if you love them, give a thumbs up on our YouTube streaming channel thingy here. But we also just wanted to humbly share with our friends who did come on our video, our young new phase tours. Just be aware that you guys are just entering this. So if nobody else should listen to what Kevin and Lisa are saying tonight, three
That's
couples
true.
should be, because being married at 2.5 years. We picked you early there, but some of you are just going to start going through this. So you got to keep, this.
That's
sort
true,
of thinking.
but I would say that you also pick those couples from our church, and we know that they're as awesome as they are, because we almost feel a little defensive, like they didn't have enough flaws
Not enough problems.
not enough problems to be.
Well,
And
maybe next week we'll get some really messed up
no,
people.
but I just really believe their confidence comes from their faith, and I thought it was really
Confidence.
special hearing them all just sharing about all the aha moments that they've had. I mean, they could all teach their own marriage class.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, you think we've stayed here on this long enough? You want to get through phase 2? You want to get through phase 3? How about phase 4? Phase 5? You need to be spiritual.
Yes,
You
yeah.
need to have some faith.
Yeah.
If not for yourself, that's even the wrong way to put it, but if not for yourself, for your spouse.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
do everybody a favor and take care of that
Yeah.
part
Take
of
care of
you.
yourself.
Be spiritual. You're going to get through phase 2. Phase 2 also needs this, and boy, we're not going to be able to spend enough time to stress this. Friendship.
Yeah, I would like to park on this one.
Friendship.
If you leave anything, like if you leave here with anything on your mind tonight, I
Here,
hope it's this
wherever
one.
here is.
Yeah, I hope it's
Wherever you
friendship,
are.
faith and friendship.
Yep. So we got a little passage up here. We stole this from the Book of Proverbs. I love the Book of Proverbs. Like little, it's if you've never read the Bible before, go read the Book of Proverbs. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's these little short pithy sayings that punch you in the nose. And so Proverbs is like that. And look at this Proverbs 17:17. You can't forget friendship, friends forever. 17:17. Right? A friend loves at all times.
Yeah.
Sounds like our marriage
It
vows,
does,
doesn't it?
for
Better
better and for worse.
all time.
In sickness and in health.
No matter what,
Yeah,
I'll be here.
yeah.
Can't get rid of
We
me.
should have this. We should use this scripture at weddings more often.
There you go. That's some good advice. Noted.
Yes.
All right, so what do we want to talk about being friends?
Well,
Anything?
Go
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, definitely, again, you said this before, but everything that we are talking about does come with research, and statistics show that couples that have a healthy, strong bond in friendship,
Yeah.
no matter, even they don't agree on things, they don't see eye to eye on things, they just have a great friendship. So
Yeah.
we would like for all of you to get from tonight how important it is to go and work on your friendship.
So if you've come out of phase 1, if you've come out of the oh yes phase, and you've moved into phase 2, you've coming out of a place where you have all the feels all the time.
Oh,
I remember that. Do
that's
you remember that
nice.
first year we were married?
Yep.
I'm telling you, the things that we did in our first year of marriage is crazy. We moved how many times?
Yeah.
Like we moved like 6 or 7 times. Could care less. We didn't have any furniture. We actually had hand-me-down furniture. Our table was a glass table and the glass was broken. There was no table. But we found this old rotty piece of plywood. We made that our table.
We had no problems, is what you're saying.
It's just all the feels,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And then at some point, all that chemicals went away and we were like, hey, who are you?
We
And
had
so
to become better friends.
you have to become better
Yep.
friends. And
Yep.
this, remember when I said the driver's seat? This is really where you got to get in the driver's seat. You've
Yes,
got to,
yes,
and
yes,
remember,
yes.
and we're gonna call out ourselves and we're gonna call out you. So many of us in the area of friendship and marriage, after a while we start to poo-poo this. Can I say that?
Yep.
Can I say that
We
on
get
the World Wide
busy
Web?
and-
We start to say, oh, you know, friends, you know, that's for Kevin and Lisa. It's not for us. I mean, we're good together. We work good together. We get good-looking kids coming out of us. We're good. But just the friend thing, it ain't going to work for us. And we'd like to say to you,
No, you have to nurture your friendship, and very important to find the commonality that you can have together, common interests, common likes. This is difficult because men and women are so different, and men often find that they enjoy building friendships in that shoulder-to-shoulder kind of activity, you know, playing games or...
okay, so nobody's going to know what that means because I don't know what that means. Shoulder to
Like,
shoulder.
in other
What are
words,
saying?
you don't want
This
to-
is what men like. What are
So,
you saying?
okay, so women...
So show us physically, what do you mean? Men like what? Sorry to interrupt you.
just,
be my
you know, hey, you know, shooting the breeze, talking, I don't
Do
know
you see
what
us
we're
right now?
doing,
This
like,
is what
you
men
know.
are like.
So, you know, yeah,
So how you
okay,
doing, Bob?
yeah, oh, okay, so whatever.
Yeah.
Or no, here,
Right.
get your video
Yeah,
game
that's
going.
right.
You know?
Here's what men. Yeah. Shoulder to
So-
shoulder, no eye contact. What are women like?
And even you and I, we spend hours walking together, and I think you love that.
Hours? What does that mean? What are we, Sherpas?
Anyway, you enjoy that. You would rather
like
talk
to
to
walk
me
together.
that way than...
Yeah, shoulder to shoulder. It's true.
Exactly,
It's a good
exactly.
point.
So-
I do not like.
No.
But we talked about the importance of looking
how
at each
many,
other's.
How many times do you see
I'm
women...
talking over you. Sorry about that.
How many times do you see women, you know, in a coffee shop just intensely, you know, across from each other having
Well,
coffee?
since the pandemic, very rarely.
Yeah, that's true.
But you're making a
But
good
anyway,
point.
so
Yeah.
and maybe it's not the case for you because I think I like shoulder to shoulder too.
Yeah, so we always get in trouble when we generalize.
Yeah, we
don't
can't generalize at all.
But we are.
And I mean, you can generalize a little bit, but basically, let's get back to the point: is you've got to find things
I'm trying to
that
mess
you
up.
that you can laugh and have fun, do together. That you are respecting each other. That you yeah. So we've got some ideas, right? We've found
some ideas that people can become
Yeah,
friends,
we-
like not become
we-
friends,
yeah.
to work on their friendship. Can you believe we got to work on our
It's
friendship?
true though. You get so busy. So people have
But
told
we're,
us
what did Melissa say? We're what? We're a same team.
same team.
Same team. Wasn't that beautiful?
I think of all the questions that those three couples found difficult, I remember they found that question the most difficult.
How to be friends.
What do you like to do to be friends?
Maybe because they
right?
need to discover how to be
So,
friends better,
maybe.
right? Because all the feels are going away, and but same
Oh,
team.
but they like to move furniture. I do remember, you know, one of them talking about that. But yeah, they're all
and buy a new dishwasher.
awesome. But may I suggest, like all of us, we
Yes.
all got to work on our friendship. So.
Am I misbehaving? Am I frustrating you right now?
No, not at all. But so we do have some suggestions
Yep.
that we've heard from other people on a few things that you can do. These, you know,
This is
more
is this
positive
also
list than the last list we put up.
Yeah, and this is not the extensive list on becoming friends. This is just things that
No.
we've sort of gleaned that other
It's
people
also
like to
all
do.
that you told me you could fit on that slide.
And
So.
it's all that we can fit on this slide. Yes, that's true. That's how techie we are here in the studio. The new studio, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so people like what?
Yeah, so
Sorry, go ahead.
I love some of these. Well, of course, walk and talk. We need to write a book, walk and talk. But
Hey, that's our book title.
but I'd like
Walk
us
and
to
talk.
start foot massages. I would like that. You know, one couple
thought we made
like
it
to
through phase two.
they like
We're
to
not
sit
in
on the
phase
couch
two.
with their feet in each other's lap while they're watching TV, massaging each other's feet. That's brilliant, and I think we should incorporate that into our.
You are being a selfish girl right now with your
Yeah.
hoping for a
Anyway,
foot massage.
So
But I should be a good example right
someone
now.
in the
I should not be resisting
No.
this. So the guys out there should see me go, yes, I will do foot massages, and I will be happy about it.
Anyway,
See how easy
your
it is?
your massages never last very long either. But okay, so
Well, they cause
the
me to think of other things.
I know. The other thing that I loved though was the groceries together, because one of our couples that we interviewed talked about how
Doing
they've
groceries
discovered.
together?
Yeah, Chris and Katya talked about
Yeah.
discovering groceries together.
Yeah,
I
I think they
think
can be
that's
fun.
cool.
I like doing groceries, but I know some guys that hate doing groceries with their wives.
Yeah.
So what should they do? Any other
Well,
suggestions?
maybe they want to watch sports together with their wife.
Can you imagine watching sports with your wife?
One couple said that their wife actually, doesn't like sports, but has gotten into it and learned his favorite teams, and it really means a lot to him. Gets the popcorn, and they enjoy watching sports together.
Now, let me tell you something.
That-
That lady
that's
is
amazing.
getting in the driver's seat. She is getting
Yeah,
in the
that-
driver's seat.
she's a
as far as
smart woman.
Friendship is concerned. That is really cool.
I know.
Because again, generalizing, and that's a dangerous
Yeah.
thing to do. But generally, it's the men, right? You see the commercials on TV. The men are just watching, and why not come alongside? How interesting. But does that mean I need to bring the popcorn for the chick flicks and these type of things?
Yeah, I
guess
gave up
that's
on that a long time ago.
Boy, I am bombing out here.
No,
aren't
you're
I?
a good husband
Right.
in many other ways.
We've talked
And
to
we
some
have lots of
couples-
fun together.
we've-
But even doing these sessions, we've decided we need to get a little more fun in our life.
yeah,
So
it's tough. It's tough to have fun in our life when we try to get ready for Marriage Mondays. That's what I'm noticing. So, anyways. that's a whole
anyway,
other
you
thing.
have to get to know yourselves. Some couples don't even really know what they want. They have expectations, but they haven't even kind of delved into their own heart what they want,
Yeah.
and then are afraid to bring it up. And these are great conversations for you to have together and really dream a little and get creative, and find out what's good for you guys, because it's different for everybody, and we certainly haven't exhausted
Can
our.
I go off script for just a second
Yes.
and put you on the spot?
Sure.
What would you say to a person who tries to initiate this kind of conversation? I feel like we're good enough friends. Not good enough, that's the wrong word. I feel like we need to work on our friendship. This is important, obviously, and we all want to take it higher. But you start to initiate some friendship things, and the other spouse just kind of rejects it or kind of So what about this? Nah. What about that? Nah. What about this? Nah. What do you do at that point? How do you not? I mean, how do you keep your emotions
Well,
from sinking? in there?
Every time I have felt that I've nagged enough and you're not listening, I can honestly say that I have prayed about it. And I know that you're going to think that, that sounds all churchy, or you're not, but you might. So honestly, it's amazing. I have prayed about things, and even for a while, and then forgotten about it. And then lo and behold, something changes on that very
Are you
issue.
saying that I'm a different man because you prayed?
Yes, actually I am.
I'm
I am.
feeling taken advantage of here.
No, but it's just kind of cool how
It
you
is a good
put it
point.
out there and it comes back around. And usually when you've forgotten that you even, prayed about it, but also the angst goes away when you pray about it. And you have to be patient. And oh my goodness, like what you've had to put up with, how I can just back at you. What would you say when things that I have been not very open to discussing or changing in our
yeah.
relationship?
Yeah, it really does come down to just communication. I think, I've used, I think we've probably all used a number of ideas over the years. Sometimes we beg and plead, oh, please, let's, I want to really do this, or I want to go to this place, I want to do this with you. And that works sometimes too, but it usually if you can have a very sober conversation, very mature conversation with your spouse, and not let the attacks or the manipulation in, not everybody, but for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
probably if you're this far into a Marriage Monday, you're probably the kind of couple that's going to listen to each other. You've probably logged off long ago if you're not the kind
I'm
of
so
spouse.
impressed with people who have continued to watch Marriage Mondays.
Yeah, it's
I
sort
think
of low-way,
another
isn't it?
thing that we're natural communicators. Some people are not natural communicators, although we've had to work at how to communicate.
Are you kidding? Of
But I
course,
think
yeah.
we've heard neat things like, we didn't put it on the screen, but some people love to incorporate that high-low, the high-low discussion.
Sort of like a game.
Yeah, like every day. I think I've even seen it on TV, sitcoms. People do it with their kids. But
so if you sit down at supper time,
yeah,
for example?
yeah, and you just share, here's a high point of my day, here's a low point of my day. And, you'll find throughout the day you're thinking of your spouse, because when things happen, you'll be like, oh, that was a high point. I can't wait to tell my spouse. Ideally, we want to always be debriefing with each other, sharing with each other every single day. The more you can talk, the more often you can talk with your spouse, the better. And so having little exercises like that, or little routines like that remind you to talk about the high and the low, because for some people, I think Eden talked about, but maybe it wasn't in the video, but he mentioned about
hit the cutting room floor.
He talked about he didn't grow up in a culture where he was encouraged to talk about his emotions and feelings, and he wasn't validated that way. So it can be, having a little exercise like high and low can kind of encourage that vulnerability.
Yeah, we don't have any more time to talk about this, but we wanted to just remind so many of you that at your workplaces, so many of you go through team building exercises at your workplace.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've actually discovered that other marrieds don't just do that at their workplace, but they bring the activities home, and you feel kind of silly doing them, right? A trust exercise or something like that. But or something like high-low, which a lot of times we learn at our teamwork building at work. Now, not everybody does this, but we think a lot of you could really take advantage of some of this, especially in this phase. In this phase, you're fighting, being disappointed and let down, and you're getting to know this other person. So any kind of these sort of trust exercise, like even, like if we were to do it right now, if I were to put my shoe up here and my shoelaces are untied, and we're going to put this arm behind each other's back, and we've got to tie my shoe together. Could you imagine, right? So, don't. No, we're not going to do it now, but because nobody wants to watch that, right? How sad would that? So, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, most of you are going, roll your eyes, give me a break. I've got real problems.
Greg Taylor said that their dinner question is, what made you smile today?
What made you smile today?
Yeah, that's great.
So please, this is an appeal for those who are feeling like, listen, I live in the real world. I've got real problems. I've got real bills.
Then you need a real friend. That's the case.
Bang. Wow, honey. Good one.
Thank you.
Up high. The pandemic high five. We can high five each other. We're allowed to touch. So all of that we think is very important.
Yeah.
So if you want to just look back over the last few minutes, quite a few minutes actually, that we've talked about, we've moved from one phase to another phase. We're in phase 2. Phase 2 is or
Wow, it's a lot of work.
Got to get to know each other.
Yeah.
And the science.
But be friends.
The science and the spirituality is, you've got to get some faith right now. You really do. If you're going to go the rest of the distance, you need that faith.
Yeah.
And you've also got to develop your friendship. So there's got to be a real guarding around that friendship piece. Melissa said it's so great. Jeremy and Melissa, right?
Yes.
What did they call it?
Same team.
Same team. Lisa and I in other sessions, if you want to go back and watch some of those, we often reference it's us.
Against the world.
It's us against the world. Now, we're not saying this defiant, we don't like anybody else. That's not true. In fact, our whole life ethos, in our dream for our life, is if we are not giving to other people, we're not interested in playing. That's what our life is all about.
It's not about selfishness. It's about strengthening each other.
But when it comes to our marriage, right, it's us.
Yeah, against the world.
Against the world. Ain't nobody going to look out for us like we're going to look out for us. Ain't nobody going to look out for our marriage like we're going to look out for our marriage.
And no one makes me laugh like you do.
Thanks so much for joining us this Monday night. This has been Marriage Monday.
Thank you, everyone.
You're
Good
in
night.
phase 2 or beyond. And next time we're together, phase 3. So thanks for taking our time being with us. Good night, everybody.